So my name is Anita Banerji, and I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me to do this keynote. I'm really pleased to be here and sharing some of my learnings and my work. And particularly thank you to Emma Finch, who spent some time with me talking about the retreat and what would fit both for you and for me. So firstly, a little bit about me. So I did a physics degree, physics with medical applications. I did various other bits and pieces. I did an MSc in computer science and then worked for a software company, a spin out for the university for about, I think it was about 5 years, and then I went back into academia to do a PhD, taking my good software practices with me. And my PhD was in medical image analysis. So you can see that image on the right there is from my PhD thesis. And I wrote software to apply two mathematical models to the liver and have a look at blood flow in the liver and try and identify metastases, so cancer within the liver. The center picture there, many of you will recognize, is a UML design for software. So a little bit of a story. In my PhD viva, my examiner started by asking me, what are you most proud of in your PhD? What are you most proud of in your thesis? And I said, my software design. I felt it gave me clarity, simplicity, but it gave me the flexibility, the extensibility to do what I wanted within my PhD, and I felt it formed a really good basis to my PhD. So, yeah, that felt like a nice start, and the viva went on, and it wasn't too long, and I passed with minor corrections. Now, one of those minor corrections was to take my beautiful, beautiful software design out of the main flow of the thesis and put it in the appendix. Yeah. So I was not best pleased about this, but at this stage, you do what you've got to do. They felt that it wasn't part of the main narrative, and it wasn't novel research, so it interrupted the flow and it should go for the appendix. So maybe that's fine, but I kind of felt, but never mind. So if I ask myself the question, what would I wish for those coming after me in this kind of career path? It would be that research software engineering skills were more broadly recognized as a key part of the research process, and that software and software design is an important output. And this was a number of years ago now, and so maybe we are moving in that direction now. I think this was 2012. So it's something in terms of building our DRI community. You might like to consider your pathway to this point in your DRI career, and you've all had a pathway to this point. What support would you wish for those following you? This could be support that you had, it was positive, and you hope that others also gain that. Or it could be support that you didn't have, something you wish had been in place. So I think it'd be quite nice for you to hold that question as you listen to the rest of the talk, and we can come back to it. So where am I now? So I work for the Software Sustainability Institute. Many of you know that institute very well. It's dedicated to improving the quality of research software. And my role there is as a research associate in impact and inclusivity. So notice I'm still on a postdoc. I have precarity of contract. I'm not speaking to this as myself as a case study, as these are the steps I took. This is how I became successful in academia. You should do the same. This is an open space where I'm going to share some learnings I've done from my move into the social sciences. So I've been looking at the impact of the SSI Fellowship Programme. I've been looking at equitable career pathways in RSC. I picked up some learnings from the social sciences that I think could be helpful to share. You may have your own thoughts and ideas and frameworks for this. So this is very much ideas for you to test out and explore, to find what works for you, to disagree with if you like. So I'm going to focus in on RSE because I work for the SSI, that's where my work has been, but some of the sections will be more generic. So there are advantages for the individual of naming your identity, in this case RSE. So it predicts greater resilience and more positive professional outcomes, success, satisfaction, meaningfulness, and team communication. It's also interesting to note that having a sense of belonging is associated with academic success. And we can define belonging as positive personal involvement in a community, or because that can lend itself more to a narrow image of people, involvement in a project so that you feel yourself to be an integral part of that project. So this isn't whether you're with like-minded people. To me, this is about knowing your skill set, knowing how you're contributed, knowing that if you're left, you'd be missed. So that can have positive advantages. So that's for the individual. Let's now move out to the research environment and have a think about whether DRI careers are supported by the REF. So many of you will know more than the REF than me, but in case you don't, it's the Research Excellence Framework. I'm sure you've heard the term, even if you're not quite clear on it. And it's the allocation of approximately $2 billion of block grant funding annually. It's a big deal. There's an assessment exercise every 4 or 5 years in this case, and each department, it's called Unit of Assessment, has to show they have quality research outputs and the number of people producing those outputs. So traditionally, it was very based around research publications and the quality of those publications. So it's already starting to change, but there are some changes coming for the REF in 2029, where they want to rethink what should be recognised and rewarded. So they're actually naming here that this influences the incentives within the research system. So it influences, in some way, promotion criteria. And they want to capture the wider contributions, the valuable contributions of a wider range of research and research-enabling staff. So in the next REF, DRI professionals can submit to the REF. So you may become a really valuable commodity to your research department in terms of gaining funding. And it's interesting to wonder how that conversation is going to happen between the REF and DRI professionals in terms of what skills we're expecting, what outputs in particular are we expecting. Is the REF going to start influencing promotion criteria for DRI professionals? Or will it be the other way around? Will DRI professionals be able to say, actually, these are really important research outputs, we feel they should be credited, submissible to the REF. So how are those conversations happening? And it may be something you want to get involved in. So they've already recruited for their 2 panels, their people and diversity advisory panel. This does look at roles, diversity of roles. It also looks at diversity of people. And they've also got their research diversity panel. So this is outputs, practices, and processes. So this could be your research infrastructure outputs. So how are they being credited? And there will be work done on, say, for software, what does 4-star software look like? What does 2-star software look like? So interesting. There's an organisation called the hinders that's already been recognised. Already been mentioned, and they celebrate what are known as non-traditional research outputs, so this isn't the research publications. And they have the Hidden Ref Manifesto, so they're asking people to sign up, departments, individuals, to 5% of their submission being non-traditional outputs. That could be infrastructure, that could be software, it could be something completely different. It could be a social worker, practitioner, putting in a policy report. It could be a creative putting in a photography exhibition. So, and the hidden ref speaks to a large amount of people, software being part of that. So it's interesting being in a broader community. So there's this question, and it was actually Kirsty Pringle at the SSI who brought this up in a meeting when I was talking about this. What is the role of DRI professionals in the ref? Do you know what your responsibilities are towards the ref? How much do you know about it? Do you know who to speak to about it? So it's something that might be worth having conversations with people about. I certainly don't have the answer. So we're moving on now a bit more towards the people diversity side. So firstly, I'd like to say that nearly everyone will experience challenges in their career and workplace. For some people, this will be based on their personal characteristics, and they will experience similar behaviours and challenges in all areas of their life. And we have what's known as the academic wheel of privilege here, and you can see the 9 protected characteristics there. So we have gender and sexuality, we have race, we have disability. But it looks more broadly than that. For example, it brings in childhood household wealth. So are you first generation graduate? It brings in language. Is English your first language? It brings in institution, post-92, Russell Group. I've put in there a little circle saying research role, because maybe some roles related to research are better supported in terms of career progression than others. Often there's a historical or socio-political context to this. So if we talk about race, we're talking about, the history of our institutions in terms of slavery and colonialism and how that plays out. Somebody mentioned, is it the tech bro or the bro tech culture? Yeah, so how is the current culture influencing our institute? And there's something about just being clear from an institutional level about, well, we have to meet the Equality Act, of course, but also what behaviours are helpful and appropriate within the institute and what behaviours aren't. And it's good to be clear about that. So, these terms, positionality, intersectionality, reflexivity, are very commonly used within the social sciences. They need a bit more unpacking that I'm going to go into today. But certainly within the social sciences, you would reflect on your positionality in relation to your research participant and know what that power dynamic is. So is there a perspective you are interested in understanding more? I really engaged in lived experience stories. You may not so much, but I find them very engaging. And I've actually explored those with a similar lived experience to myself because I hadn't learned to articulate what the barriers and behaviours were that I was seeing towards myself. So it actually helped me to actually understand the history, the relationship between India and Britain and colonialism and how I fitted in with that and some of the behaviours. Wasn't easy work, but in a way it's opened up a certain space for me. So let's bring in some perspectives from the tech world at least. So this is a paper by Dagan et al. That I'd recommend, and they were looking at software engineering teams in Google. The paper talked about how engineers within Google have some kind of freedom or agency to choose which team they work for. And it appeared that some managers were building quite diverse software engineering teams in terms of protected characteristics, and others weren't. So they did interviews with managers where things were going well and barriers from engineers. So let's take a barrier to start with. So this engineer feels like she gets typecasted as a bit of a female front-end engineer. So she says it's frustrating seeing as front-end work is not seen as difficult and is more often associated with women, and it's not what she does. So there's two issues here. Firstly, it's dismissing front-end engineering and the complex skill set required in that. So I just want to say that for anybody in the room who's like, yow. So yeah, it's dismissing a particular skill set. The other thing is it's seeing it as less technical, and so that's something we push women towards doing that role. And I've talked with other people who've had that experience. So now we have a manager's perspective of a team, of a manager that built a diverse team. And he suggests that you avoid protecting people from underrepresented groups, thereby keeping them away from growth opportunities. So he says you've got to give them a chance to fail and grow, and you might find skills that you didn't appreciate. What I find interesting about this is a manager might try and protect somebody with good intentions. They might see them as vulnerable and not want to put them in a difficult position, but they're thereby keeping them away from some of the opportunities. So it's seeing somebody as a kind of vulnerable rather than having strengths. And what's interesting is this could be a really well-intentioned, affable, nice person, but they're still playing out some of the prejudices. So I think that's a really interesting example. And it's always good to honour lived experiences. And if you want to find more about what works and what doesn't, I recommend this paper. So again, I'm focusing on RSE here, so apologies for those not in this role, because this is where my work has been. How are we doing with diversity in RSE? Most of the figures here are from 2018, and then I've labelled the updated ones. So I don't want to use the laser because you will see it's like a nerve. Oh no, look, I'm quite fairly steady today. Normally exaggerates my nervousness. But you can see with gender, in academia, it looks like they're reaching parity. RSEs, we've got a little bit of way to go there. In terms of the Black, Asian, minority ethnic group, and obviously there will be differentials within that group, I want to note that. Academia is actually now above all UK workers, but RSEs have got a little bit of a way to go. Who knows whether that's a significant shift or not? I haven't looked at the data closely. And then reporting disabilities, academics and RSEs are both a little behind all UK workers. And these figures are from 2018. So we look like we're doing okay here, but actually I want to dig into that just a little bit more. So it depends on career stage, and you're probably not that surprised, and we've probably witnessed that a little bit at this conference, at this retreat as well. If we look at the professorial level, we can see that 61% almost professors are white male, and 28% are white female, so you can see the disparity there. And obviously looking at, if we looked at black females, that would probably be the biggest mismatch between who is living in our areas and who is advancing in higher education. So it's worth digging into the data. So what approaches can we take to supporting diverse roles and people in academia? I've got two models here from the social sciences. And there are positives from both these, looking at both these kind of models, the deficit model and the transformative paradigm. Any initiative could probably cover both, but it depends on the ethos and how it's set up. So I wouldn't want to dismiss any initiative particular, but it's about looking at, how it's being sort of framed in a way and who's involved in it. So the deficit model is focusing on what individuals lack and tries to fix those people to fit into the current system. So, but it can be quite practical. You can train people up, you can give them mentoring, yes, to help them navigate current structures. You can also think about what it would be like to fit an RIE role into a progression structure for academics. and then try and upskill the RIEs. It just wouldn't work, would it? We need to do something different with our structures. The transformative paradigm is more about giving agency to the people who, with the lived experience, empowering them to find the solution that will work for them. So it's about effective institutional change. So this is about changing your policies, your processes, your procedures, who is in the room making decisions, who is outside of the room making informal decisions, who's involved. So it's looking more structurally. So this is a paper. It's a bit older now. It's in Harvard Business Review, so it's more of an article than a paper. There is a book that goes with it that I should read. It's from 2016. It has 3 decades worth of data from 800 US firms. So we're talking not software firms, we're talking about big commercial firms who have had to make changes because they've had litigation issues, they've been sued. Yeah, so that was the motivation. And what I like is they've looked at the data in terms of, they've looked at the numbers, how diversity has changed in terms of protected characteristics over 3 decades, and they've looked at the initiatives that have been run, and they've looked at where it's got better and where it's got worse. So to jump to the answers, what they say is engage managers in solving the problems. So some of these companies previously had punitive approaches. There's something not right in this team. Right, you're all going to EDI training. It doesn't work. It causes policy backfire. So their way of engaging managers was saying, right, can your managers get involved in targeted recruitment programs? Can they reach out to where they're going to find diverse people and bring them in? So get them involved. Get them involved in mentoring programs. And there may be other things we could do within the RSE world. Also increase, in this case they were saying increase managers on the job contact with underrepresented groups. And I was just having a conversation about this. You know, within academia it's like, this team quite sort of towards women. This team is quite towards men. Can we work in academia where people are coming across each other and gaining confidence in each other's specialist roles? So how can you find ways to work with people that are different for you? And they had some ways to do this within the commercial sector. This is really important, promoting social accountability. There has to be accountability. And there was a question, wasn't there, and how do we build trust in institutions' commitment towards that EDI? Look for whether they're just making statements, or look whether they have actions to take and whether they're holding themselves accountable. This can include data transparency. So somebody gave a lovely example earlier of trying out a values-based recruitment process, and they had a look at their data. This is who we have applying, this is who is shortlisted, this is who get the roles. So monitor your data. Diversity task forces are to provide accountability, so you might get senior managers asking to see data from teams, from departments. And if you have to explain your decision to somebody, it sets off a different mindset when you're doing recruitment. Yeah, promoting social accountability. So I had that thing on gaining employer trust. Requires social accountability, not just good words. So what are we doing at the SSI? Well, I'm leading on an inclusive RSE project, and this is a co-produced project. So the idea is we bring social sciences together with RSE stakeholders from underrepresented groups, and we're going to explore the barriers and enablers to underrepresented groups adopting an RSE identity. We feel it's important to explore people's lived experiences so we know what the barriers are, what will cause policy backfire, what will make things worse. So the idea was that we created a shared learning space and had 5 workshops to gather insights from our RSE stakeholders. We also reached out more broadly through their networks and got feedback on our interview schedule to find out whether it was appropriate, were they allowed to fully express their opinions through that. Some feedback from our RSC stakeholders. Ruth said that the structured distribution of roles promotes a sense of accountability and ownership. So it was great knowing that because it was a cross-disciplinary project. Ella was great. She said at the start of the project she was excited by the goal but really skeptical about the approach. What was all this team building stuff about? Can't we just get on with it and do it? But she said by the end of the project she felt kinship with the team and was impressed by the amount we got done. So I'm going to move on now to building a DRI career. And it might be interesting now to bring in that question, what would you wish for those coming after you? You may see a gap here in your own kind of support you've had that you would like to be in place for those coming after you. And this is a social science model. It was published first in 1994 and it has been used across the board. You may find things that fit for you, things that don't, so pick and choose what works for you. So to be motivated to pursue a DRI career, you need to have good self-efficacy and good output expectations. So self-efficacy is, do I have skills and qualities and capabilities to do the DRI role? It's not synonymous with objectively assessed skills, so exam results. Output expectations are, will I gain benefits I would like from pursuing a DRI role? So those can be extrinsic, that can be promotion, status, it can be financial. It can be intrinsic. Is it meaningful? Do I enjoy it? Do I fit in with the values of this context? And there was a debate, wasn't there, about I think promotion's like this, I think promotion is like this. Maybe it's for the individual employee to decide what's important about promotion and have a conversation with their line managers so they could be supported in an appropriate way. So is there a career pathway? Can you make the progress you want? Is the role acknowledged and credited? Is good practice appreciated? I think these are really kind of pertinent questions for DRI. And it may be that we want to work together to build towards those being there. You know, those conversations have been happening. If you're from an underrepresented group, will socio-cultural stereotypes, glass ceiling, systemic bias affect my career? Am I fed up with people thinking that I'm the admin in computer science because I'm a brown woman? Yes, I am. So, yeah. So how do we improve our self-efficacy and output expectations? We need to find opportunities to gain confidence in our DRI capabilities. You need to see yourself doing the role, to find those growth opportunities, find those learning opportunities, gain confidence in yourself. There's vicarious learning, that's seeing similar others ahead of you. So if you see where they are, you can see your own path through. And if you're an underrepresented group, it might be important to see somebody who looks like you or has shared lived experience along that career path so that you can see it's possible. And some of you may be performing that task of role model for others. And it's really important. Social persuasion, being encouraged. So this may be one of the arenas, this retreat, where you can feel encouraged by others to continue along the path. You're having conversations, you're being acknowledged, both in your technical skills and in your understanding of research structures. So it's important to find these kind of forums, especially if you're not finding them so much locally. So yeah, do have a think about there of what you've had that you would wish for others, or what you haven't had that you would wish for others. So we're going to look, we're coming towards the end now, about what supports a DRI career. And I've picked the SSI Fellowship Impact Evaluation to give us an example of this. So some of you may know about the fellowship program. It won't be for everybody, but it just forms a nice example. It's not a substantive fellowship. You're given $3,000 to go and do some advocacy and training activities around good practice, and you can see up there there's various sort of support that kind of comes with that. So we found we had a 25% response rate, so that was 17 people. The professional development, the fellowship supported the fellows to develop professionally. So you can see here there was an increase in professional skills, networks, reputation, career development, their CVs, and they were offered opportunities as part of this. So it's interesting to tease out of that, and we did some interviews as well, what did this support look like? And I tease this out using that social cognitive career theory model. So it provides a platform for sharing knowledge and skills, and that increases people's self-efficacy because they can support others, so they can see themselves demonstrating their knowledge. It also increased their ambition because they were maybe a little bit stuck, didn't know where to go next, and they saw other people doing this, that, and the other, and they thought, well, I want to do that too. I want to make that progress. And it also became a safe testing ground for new ideas. They had reputational gain. It raised their profile. And this was because of having the badge of SSI Fellowship. And we've had discussions around this already. What's your badge? So, you know, we talked about it's hard to go back to your waving your degree or your PhD as a badge. So can you articulate what your unique skill set is and how you contribute to research? Because you may have to badge yourself. So if somebody meets you at a conference or you're working with them, you can say, this is my skill set. So you're almost branding yourself, if you like. And other micro-credentials we can start to build in the community. I've got level 1 in this, or I've got level 3. I've got a black belt in this. So there are also disadvantages to these kind of systems, but it'd be good to pull out the advantages. They had network growth, opportunities to collaborate. So where can you not be the person sort of doing the personal contribution? Where can you be the person who's the expert, who's giving advice rather than the on-ground doing? And that could be technical advice. So it's good to look out for those opportunities and opportunities for professional growth, leadership, independence, collaborative skills. So some of those may or may not appeal to you. That's fine. It's, you know, which ones do you feel drawn about? Which ones work for you? So I'd like to go back to that question now. What support would you wish for those following you? And if you could go on Slido and we could build a picture of this, that would be great. You need to use the QR code rather than a number, but we could put the Slido up and that would have the correct number on as well if you're on a laptop. Okay. We could go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you. So, yes, I meant to put that on the slide. Just to bring in a different perspective there of a Paralympic athlete who, when I asked her this question, she said that she had coaches who saw her more broadly than just an athlete, who appreciated other aspects of her life. And I think that's interesting for, athletics. The goal is, by its nature, so narrow. They have to be so dedicated. And yet, as a disabled athlete, she didn't focus on that. She focused on this broader support, being seen as a broader person, a more holistic sense of who she was. So I'm going to finish with, this is the final thing. If you're doing diversity work in academia, maybe even if you're championing a role, if you're doing environmental work within academia, you might feel that sometimes you're leaning against doors and they're not quite moving, somebody's foot is in the way. So how do you resource yourself when you're doing diversity, inclusivity work, or advocacy work, if you like, in academia? There are 9 out of 10 guidelines here, so there are many of you that do this kind of work, so maybe somebody would like to suggest the 10th guideline. That's absolutely open. You may agree or disagree with these. But I'm going to focus on 3. We've covered a lot of these already. Find out whose footsteps you are following in and know who you are making way for in the future. So this is about resourcing yourself. It's not all on you. Kristen used that phrase, moving the dial. People have moved the dial in the past. They've cleared a pathway, and now you're doing that for the people that are coming after you. So in a way, you want to link in with them and encourage them to follow in your footsteps. So that can just sort of release some pressure from you, responsibility. And it's also to look to engender systemic transformation, even in a small way. It's great to help people work on their imposter syndrome. It's great to offer training, but we need to change systems, I guess. So can you change policy practices and processes? You will, of course, meet challenges in the most nice and polite way, but they can still be challenges, people who try and divert the conversation and what have you. And for me, that's not about then countering that argument completely, about coming back to the bigger picture, speaking to the good in people and sharing a vision that you can work towards. So, before I finish, just to say thanks to everybody who contributed to this work. Everybody there, but I would particularly like to give a shout out to Miriam Tenquist and Aisha Rashid, who are early careers, and they really helped bring the social sciences into the projects that I'm doing. So thank you for listening. We probably have some questions on Slido, maybe? Or maybe not. But what I would actually recommend is you turn to the person next to you and just say something that you found interesting or something that you maybe disagreed with. Something you want to get more curious about. Okay, if you'd like to bring your conversations to a close now, thank you for your attention, and I'll hand over to Alan and Matt for the closing address.